Alrighty, so today I'm actually going to go a little out of order in terms of the moving forward series episode. Normally, when I do these episodes, I usually follow the order of the team getting eliminated from playoff contention into regular season, or I'll just basically go in terms of the order of where each of these teams are finished if the regular season is over, which is pretty soon for now. But instead, I'm going to go out of order because, on Sunday we had another head coach that end up on the chopping block, and that head coach is Josh Wolff, and one that I think pretty much all Austin fans saw this one coming, and one that pretty much Austin fans been want to happen for a long time. And I thought it's kind of perfect time to not only talk about that, but also kind of mix in into the moving forward series episode about Austin FC, because what's kind of interesting about Austin. Yes, they're currently in 10th position, which is the first team out of the playoffs if the playoffs started today. But let's be honest, as we have already seen in terms of the Western Conference playoff race, it's basically not a race whatsoever. It's been long decided, and there's no doubt that this season for Austin, it just kind of feels like it's a mixture of a 2023 and 2022 kind of team where we have saw some heroics from Austin this season and them defying odds in terms of winning games. And then we saw some very terrible kind of soccer from Austin, and a team that looked like is the reason why I predicted them to finish dead last in the standing, because this team just they just have no quality whatsoever. And add to the fact you got a head coach that had pretty much at times had no idea in terms of how he sets up the teams and the tactics that he put. And you get this kind of team, which is the team that somehow still were able to miraculously find them way in terms of the playoff race, but just not enough in the end as a result. Now that being said, they are currently 10, 9, and 14, and they currently have 39 points. They scored 36 goals this season. Yeah, the attack was absolutely woeful from Austin this season. That not only is the worst mark in the Western Conference, but only two teams that has worse of goal scoring record than Austin FC. Only New England and Nashville, of course, have a worse goal scoring record, and it's safe to say that yeah, they really struggle this season on the attacking end. And it also kind of isn't surprised, because when you kind of play that bend but don't break kind of style soccer that Austin played a lot, especially on the road this season, it is no wonder why they don't score a lot of goals. And when you are for the most part only like averaging like 4 or 5 shots on the road by playing that brand of soccer, it's also no surprise that they really are a team that is not a team that score a ton of goals. Now, in terms of the goal allows that they have, it's a little better compared to last season. They've given up 46 goals. I remember last season that defense was an absolute disaster for this Austin FC team. But it is a little bit better, and it's not mainly because of the fact that the defense has gone better. It's mainly because Brad Suver basically has gone into a very underrated kind of season, a season that I don't think he's gonna get goalkeeping of the year kind of recognition, but at times he have just single handedly have saved this Austin team and have stole points for this Austin team throughout this season. And they have a goal differential of -10, and as I mentioned, they're currently 10th in the Western Conference. But let's be honest, when you look at the Western Conference race, and especially the playoff race, it's not a conversation whatsoever. But in terms of the last free season and how Austin has looked in the last preseason, well, they finished last season in 12th place with 10, 9, and 15 record, and finished with 39 points, which is kind of interesting. If they get a loss in their final game of the season, they would literally finish exactly the same point total as last season, but they only finished just a little bit higher in the standings. So I guess that's not. I mean, I guess that's kind of improvement if you finish higher than where you are last year, but you still finish with the same points total. But yeah, last year was just not only they really regressed to the mean, they regressed to the mean hard last season, and that was followed by an incredible 2022 season. They finished with second position with a 16, 8, and 10 record, and finished with 56 points. They made it all the way to the Western Conference Final before losing to LAFC. And then in 2021, their first season they also finished in 12th place with 9, 4, and 21 record, and finished with 31 points, and kind of had a very typical expansion season. Kind of a year for a lot of expansion team that are going to go through the growing pains, but eventually did get a little bit better as the season goes along. Now, when you look at the top goals scored, it's not surprising when you have a team that is the worst in terms of the goal scoring in the West, and one of the worst in the league, that you don't have a double digit goal scorer, and not a lot of players has a lot of goals in this team. But the top goal scorer of this team is Hunter O'Brien with 7 goals, which is kind of surprising considering he's never usually been known as a good goal scorer, even doing his time with FC Dallas. But he actually had a career year in this season with Austin with 7 goals, followed by Sebastian Driussi, who continue who really just nothing like the Sebastian Driussi we saw in 2022 with 6 goals, followed by Diego Rubio with 4 goals, Guillermo Barro with 3 goals, and then John Gallagher finished also with 3 goals to round out the top five. The top assist leader, Alex Ring, actually is the top assist leader with 7 assists. I think this is probably his best season that he has with Austin. Besides the 2022 season, there's no doubt it was a bounce back year for Alex Ring. I mean, last season it was an absolute disaster for him. It was so bad that it got to a point where Austin had to make a decision of whether or not if they really want to keep Alex Rain for another season. Well, this year he definitely had a much more improved season with 7 assists, followed by Danny Pereira with 5 assists, Hunter O'Brien with 4 assists, Owen Wolf with 4 assists, and John Gallagher with 3 assists. Now, looking at the best win of the season, I gotta go in terms of looking at their leads cup run, especially in the group stage. Remember last year when Austin embarrassed himself to those two Liga MX team, that is Mazatlan and SC Juarez, and coming into this time where they once again face two Liga MX team in the group. But this time it's against Rayados and Pumas, two of the best team in the region, and it's hard to believe, but somehow in some way they not only were able to do well between both of those teams, they won both of those games against Rayados and Pumas. If you would have told any Austin fans that coming into that Leeds Cup that they would be two of the best team, including literally the best team in the CONCACAF region up to that point, they would think that's too good to be true. But here we are. They won those 2 games, and again, I had a decision: should I pick the Pumas game or should I pick the Rayados game? I picked the Rayados game simply because the fact that not only they won that game against Monterrey, but to shut them out against the best team in the region. I mean that was just that didn't make any sense. No one saw that coming. And yes, I know the Pumas game was impressive, especially with the fact that Austin was actually down to 10 men for the rest of the game. The fact that they hold a shutout against Monterrey, a team that don't usually get shut out in Liga MX, let alone facing against an MLS team, that was absolutely incredible and definitely one of the highlights and probably one of the biggest wins that Austin have ever had. I mean, we have come a long way since those Violetta days in the CONCACAF Champions Cup to say that Austin actually does well in a tournament against teams from other country. Now, in terms of the worst loss of the season, I mean, I could have easily gone with a couple of bad losses that Austin has had where they show no life whatsoever. I think that 5-1 loss against RSL is a good example. But I got to go with the 2-1 loss against Toronto FC. I think that loss pretty much just kind of put the nail in the coffin, or at least kind of put the nail a little bit into the coffin of Austin any chances in terms of making the playoffs, because they knew that they had to win that game. They were facing against a team that was also chasing for playoffs, and the fact that they weren't able to win that game and then go on a very miserable run after that. I mean, yeah, that game kind of just signal almost beginning of the end for Austin chances in terms of making a playoff push. Now, in terms of average attendance, 20,738, which is good for 18th in the league, and there's no doubt that number is basically tickets that are pay in terms of the attendance and not actually butts in the seat. And again, we can have that discussion in terms of whether or not the league should go for with butts in the seat or pay attendance, and that's kind of a discussion not just in MLS but pretty much in other professional league here in the US. But one thing I know for sure is there's no way that most of the games I've seen at Q2 Stadium were 20,738. I mean, there are some games where the stadium looked like it's at least only half full in it. And again, the other thing I will also say about Austin game this season, it feels like the enthusiasm has really died down in this team. I mean, I remember a couple of years, Q2 Stadium always is rocking. The atmosphere is always great. But this year, it has not been the same case, and I don't blame the fact that that is the case, because when you have a team that hasn't been doing well, at least in the last 2 seasons, and also not to mention at times play some very boring brand of soccer, there's not really a lot you can be very enthusiastic as at all. And again, like I said, I think that season. There is no way that I've seen in any of these Austin games in terms of butts in the seat that is a sauerkraut. There was just so many empty seats, more than ever I've seen this season compared to previous year in that stadium as well. Now, in terms of MVP of this team, I mean, I don't even need to say who's the MVP of this team. You probably know who it is. I'm pretty sure Austin fan knows it. It's got to be Brad Stewart. I mean, again, this is a guy. Now, I don't know if he's gonna be in contention, at least one of the finalists in terms of goalkeeper of the year. I think he should because simply this is probably the best that we have seen Brad Stuver has looked with Austin, maybe since the 2022 season. I would say maybe even better considering this season. There's been times where he's just stole points for Austin. I mean, there's times where he has been coming up with big save after big save to steal points for Austin throughout the season, and I'll mention it again once we talk about what went right for this team, and that yeah, there is no doubt that he deserved to be the MVP. And I think this might be one of the few times where I actually put the goalkeeper as an MVP. That's how impact that Brad Stuver has been to this Austin FC team. Now, in terms of disappointment, obviously there's a lot of players you can pick in terms of having a disappointing season for Austin, but it's got to be Sebastian Driussi. And again, I'll say this the same thing when I do the Nashville Moving Forward series episode, but it's hard to believe that just 2 years ago we had a big MVP race battle between Sebastian Driussi and Hani Mukhtar. Eventually, Hani Mukhtar, of course, won that MVP race, and it's hard to believe 2 years later both of them are nowhere near in terms of the level that they are. And part of the reason why Sebastian Driussi hasn't been good, he's been dealing with a lot of injury. He's been in and out of the lineup, and when you've been so in and out like that, it doesn't matter how good you are. It's gonna take a toll on you, and it feels like it has kind of took a toll on him, and he just have not been the same player that we saw in 2022. And as I also mentioned in just a bit, they got a big decision that they're gonna make with Sebastian Driussi heading into next season because I believe his contract is gonna end next season. Well, at the end of next season, that is, and then there is an option for 2026. But with the way that hell he's been playing and the fact that he hasn't been able to stay healthy for most of the time, you even want to decide to pick up that option and basically pay the amount that again he is nowhere near in terms of to what he was a couple of years ago, and that contract is looking even more uglier with the way that he's not performing the same way that he did just a couple of years ago. Now, in terms of young player to watch, it's really between Danny Pereira and Owen Wolff, and I probably should have put both of those because both of those guys are kind of in even projectile in terms of being young players to watch for Austin FC. I decided to go with Owen Wolff mainly because I kind of flip a coin to decide who will be on that list. But also, I do think that he just had just a little bit more potential and upside compared to Danny Pereira. Not to discount Danny Pereira whatsoever. He has really looked well, and he's really one of the few number one picks that we have seen that an expansion team picked up. Turns out to do well. It's hard to believe that when you look at a lot of these number one picks from the expansion draft, not a lot of them actually panned out very well. But Danny Pereira has really done so. But between him and Owen Wolff, I just decided to think that Owen Wolff does have a little bit upside. He at time has some upside to do very well, and not to mention he also has been giving some playing time, partially because his dad coached the team. Well, he was coaching the team, but now he's not coaching the team anymore after getting fired, and we'll see whether or not if he does get more minutes with the new coaching regime. Now, what went right for this Austin FC team? As I mentioned, Brad Stuver single-handedly stealing points throughout the season. Again, that bend but don't break kind of style isn't because of the fact that Austin defense is good. There's been times I would say that is the case, but it's also mainly because Brad Stuver making some huge save throughout the season, stealing points and keeping Austin in games that they have no business be within. And then, of course, somehow winning twice against two Liga MX's powerhouse team, as I mentioned against Monterrey and Pumas. Who would have thought that would be the case where Austin would not only beat both of them, but finish at the top of the group. We won't discuss what happened after that because yeah, they didn't fare so well against LAFC in the round of 32. And then I think the other thing that went right for this team, and this is kind of a combination of what I said about 2022, that kind of mix in with what we see in 2023. As bad as they have looked this season, they have shown that resiliency that we saw in 2022, just defying the odds by winning despite just getting absolutely outperformed their XG. They must be right up there in terms of a team that is leading in the league in terms of outperforming their XG. And normally I don't like to talk about XGs and uh expect expectancy points, but it must be being way up high there because there's been times where, as I mentioned, there's been times where they can be completely outshot in the game, and somehow they got a lucky goal that goes their way, and next thing you know, they get all 3 points as a result of that. And a prime example, I think, was just a couple of games ago when they played against the Portland Timbers, absolutely getting out slammed by the Timbers in terms of the chances, but somehow got a lucky deflection go, and that's kind of at times sums up the season for Austin. And I even make that joke about how, for whatever reason, this team, when they're just getting absolutely outperforming their XG, they're gonna win the game. But if they actually were able to beat the other team in terms of the expectancy number, and they're gonna most likely lose the game because that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, again, they have shown at times that they have shown that resiliency that they've shown in the 2022 season, but unfortunately not enough compared to what we saw in 2022, where it feels like it was every week that they show that resiliency to get them in second in the Western Conference. So what went wrong for this team? Oh boy, a lot of things went wrong for this team. Obviously, the attack was absolutely woeful for the most part this season. I mean, no disrespect to Hodder O'Brien, but when Hodder O'Brien is literally your top goal scorer, there is some serious problem with your attack. I mean, they have no number 9 on this team. Diego Rubio was supposed to be that guy, but he doesn't seem like that guy, and especially looks like he's winding down his career. Charlie Zardes maybe was that guy, but he also is another guy that kind of wind down his career. And then, as I already mentioned, Sebastian Driussi, it feels like he has to be the linchpin of this team to get the attack going. Yeah, he didn't really show up for most time this season, even when he is healthy. And when you add all that together, it's no surprise the attack was absolutely woeful and just as bad as what we saw in the first season. Where I remember in the first season their attack was mostly bad as well. Again, Driussi continued just completely fall off the cliff of finishing from running up in the MVP race just a couple of years ago to just pretty much becoming one of the worst DP in the league right now. And then, as I mentioned, the other thing that went wrong at times, they play some of the worst brand of soccer you can imagine, and this is why a lot of Austin fans were very upset at Josh Wolff, because the tactics that Josh Wolff put, sometimes it just does not make it any sense whatsoever. His substitution also kind of doesn't make sense. There's sometimes where he made the wrong substitution, or where he doesn't make substitution to freshen up. Basically, in other words, he was not a good manager in terms of managing the game itself. And as I said, it was no surprise that he had to let go. I feel like last season he was probably very fortunate to not be let go. I mean, after that disastrous of a season that they had, there was already a lot of Josh Wolff out kind whisper in the Austin fan base. This year, it pretty much intensified with how bad things have gone. And while things have kind of gone a little bit better, at least in the middle part of the season, and maybe that's kind of the reason why it kept him alive for a bit, it was still not great. Like again, this team, as I mentioned before, if they did not have those kind of resort where they defy odds by winning despite just getting absolutely outperformed by XG, and have that break bend but don't break, and also Brad Stewart single-handedly stealing them point, they would be pretty much near the bottom of the standings. I wouldn't say that they would be literally at the bottom of the standings because, as I already mentioned, the San Jose Earthquakes pretty much has that title won a long time ago, but there's no doubt that they would have exactly what I thought they were when I make my prediction in the before the regular season, that they were going to be a bottom feeder because just no talent whatsoever in combination of a manager or a head coach that just doesn't know what he's doing, both tactically and his substitution and lineup as well. So moving forward for this Austin team, there's no doubt they need a new voice, and we'll see who exactly that new voice is going to be for this team. And the other thing that I already mentioned before, is a time to move on with Driussi. I do think that this is a make or break year for Sebastian Driussi, knowing that his contract is going to be up at the end of the season. If he doesn't do well, there's no doubt that they're going to have to move on from him and find another DP level number 10. But I think the other thing moving forward for this team is the fact that I feel like this team needs to go for a massive rebuild. When I look at the roster that Austin has had, this roster is nowhere near in terms of being a team that should be competing for playoff contention. And again, like I said, a part of the reason why they at least were kind of close because of it is because of them defying odds and had that kind of resilient spirit. Well, it's great to have that at times, but you can't just simply rely on that as a way to back you into a playoff. In other words, the old saying, you can't just expect everything that goes in your way or bounce your way to make it to the playoffs. Is that kind of seems like the philosophy that Austin is running right now. So they legitimately need a rebuild. They legitimately need a bit of a tear down and trying to build from this roster both on the defensive end, the midfield, and also on the attacking end. And we'll see whether they can do so, because one of the things that is a big concern for Austin fans, and I think Columbus fans kind of warned Austin fans about this before, is that whether or not if Anthony Precourt would open the wallet, and especially with their new sporting director, whether or not they're going to be more ambitious. Now they kind of shown a little bit of that at least in the summer transfer window. Getting guys like Bakari and Dessler, that might be a beginning of a turning point. Though both of those guys haven't really had a great start to their career for Austin, and you're just hoping that maybe that's just because they're just getting into just having a feel of the league. And we always see before where players usually takes time to adjust when they come into a new league and a new country. But there's no doubt that they need more pieces to get this going again. This team wants to get back to where they were in 2022, want to get anywhere close in terms of competing in the playoffs. They need to shed a lot of pieces and maybe find the right pieces, because if they don't do so, and not to mention getting the right head coach, this could be similar to what we see heading into the next season as well, where we're going to see an Austin team that once again is going to be probably hoping that everything goes their way so they can somehow sneak into the playoffs like what we saw in 2022 and making a good run, when in reality that just doesn't work like that. More time or not. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at this moving forward series for Austin FC. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an Austin fan, what do you think is the MVP? What went right? What went wrong? Moving forward, and also the disappointment in young player to watch for this team. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, be sure to like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.